Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to each and every witness for coming in today, especially you, Mr. Strobel, from close to home in Chicago. Thank you. Let me throw maybe a couple softballs your way. Expensing. Right now, you've got to calculate depreciation and deduct that from your taxes. Would it be a heck of a lot easier if you could just write off the full cost of expenses in the first year? What would that do to each? What would that do? Good or bad?
Well, from a tax perspective, it'd be better. I mean, there would be less tax to pay, more investment.
And what would that lead to? Less tax to pay would lead to what?
More money to invest in the business, more money to grow the business, more money to market, more money to understand our customers. And that should lead to growth, should lead to us being more competitive, help us be more differentiated, and be more profitable, but also be able to employ more people and grow. And we need people to grow the business. Mr.
Culp.
I would agree with that. If the Section 179, I think it's called, I'm not an accountant myself, but my accountant tells me this is obviously put there for a reason by Congress because it does exactly what you're thinking it should do. It simply makes sense to be able to expense as much as possible. It makes you invest in the business, hire people, and buy goods and services that you otherwise wouldn't.
Mr. Walker.
I concur. If you're able to write off 100% of your equipment costs, you lower income, lower tax, increase discretionary income. That is what allows somebody to actually make an investment and bring in people. I know in one occasion that I can think of right off the top of my head, a new business owner was coming in, had plans to hire 5 people, had to cut that down to 3 because they couldn't deduct a number of the items that they had projected they could once their accountant told them that what they were actually going to be able to take as a deduction. And a lot of it was equipment investment. So I know that happens.
Ms. Olson, would that be a good thing?
Well, I think you would have to also address the issue of recapture that Mr. Walker spoke about, because in our office, that's where we see problems for taxpayers. It's a gotcha. You know, they don't know it exists, and then suddenly they've disposed of an asset that they depreciated fully under 179, and then a liability is all back to them. So you have to deal with that.
You know, thankfully, it looks like Congress is repealing the 1099 that was part of the healthcare legislation from last year. 1099s, though, are still an issue, even prior to this addition with the healthcare legislation. You still have to fill out 1099s, and I'm guessing that costs money, and that's still a headache. Any sense that as currently constituted, they're an undue burden? Mr. Strobel, Mr. Culp?
I can't. I guess I would say an undue burden. Filling out 1099s for us is not an undue burden.
Mr. Culp?
For us, I guess we've gotten used to it to the point where
Yeah.
it's like the frog thrown into the frying pan. You don't really know, but I believe the repeal of the 1099 within the healthcare provision is absolutely necessary because that would just proliferate them and make it very, very onerous and complex.
Mr. Walker?
The 1099 reporting as it currently is without the additional, it needs to be there. And I happen to come across many people who believe that if they have been paid less than $600, they're not even supposed to pay income tax on that. So they even misunderstand the regs. But if without having a 1099 reporting, absolutely income tax collections would go down. People would find ways to hide that money because they would believe nobody knows they made it. So it is necessary with our current structure.
Ms. Olson, quick question. Is the IRS planning at all on implementing any sort of substantive e-filing system for business taxes?
You know, I have not seen those plans, and we have advocated for that for years. Even they used to have a system just for employment tax where you could use your telephone, and they eliminated that. We did a study last year that just said you need to reinstitute that. That's the only free electronic method for employment, businesses to file.
Why don't you think there's been movement on that?
I think it's a combination of both the concern on the part of the software developers that the IRS is intruding on their environment, as well as it is going to be a capital investment on the part of the IRS. You all need to fund the IRS to be able to do that. I feel like it's it really is a necessity. We have an obligation to do that, particularly for small businesses.
Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.